Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is Richie Schneiderite. Richie, the football season is over. Rutgers lost I wouldn't even call it a heartbreaker. Rutgers mercifully ended its season with a 37-0 loss at College Park in Maryland. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about basketball. We'll talk about recruiting. We'll talk about the OC search. But first, this podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. Basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends on BetOnline. As your continued resource for all your sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, or even golf. You'd head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just be sure to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. We can talk about where the Rutgers game started on Saturday with the defense showing, that they were ready to play. They forced 2 turnovers in Maryland's first 3 drives, but the offense continued to be a total disaster. I think they had like 150 total yards of offense. This, in my opinion, was the most depressing game Rutgers played all season. What did you see on Saturday against Maryland?
I guess real quick, because I forgot about this before we get into this really pretty deep and everything. But pause. That was bad. We are offering a promo right now on the Night Report too. I forgot to mention it. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the last day for $1.83 a month, $22 for the entire year. Sign up now. Promo code Rivals22. I'm going to mention this like 4 more times in the podcast because I can't keep reiterating it enough. But what did I see on Saturday? I saw a team that didn't give a shit. A team that just was beat down all year long and just didn't really care whatsoever in this game. Maybe the defense cared a little bit because they looked pretty good all season long. But the offense was, I don't want to say stagnant. I'm going to say putrid. That was the most miserable performance I've ever seen on offense, from play calling to blocking to route running to separation from the wide receivers. It was just abysmal. I'm using all these SAT words today. It was just
emptying out the 10-cent word container.
Yeah, absolutely pathetic. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And it kept piling on. It didn't stop at any point. Yeah, maybe Rashad Rochelle had a couple nice carries here and there, but the rest of everyone else just didn't do shit. It was bad. Cruikshank had, even on special teams, the special teams all year long. I know you don't. I don't want to hear the complaints that you don't have a special teams coordinator. They have special teams coaches. Mind you, they aren't good, obviously, because the special teams unit has been the most penalized unit. It's been awful. They have no returns. They got 3 block kicks. Other than that, they haven't done shit. Cruikshank fumbled on special teams. He's been, I don't even know what happened to him this year. I think the injury might have scared him off a little bit because it is a serious injury, and I can speak from experience. I've torn both my ACLs, and it is scary to go back on a basketball court again. But you gotta, if you're not going to produce, then all right, let's put Youngblood back there. The MIA man, the man who's just been missing for the past 7-8 weeks.
I think after the Iowa game, the staff was pretty much done with him. I think, didn't he have he had the fumble, and then I think he had the play that led to an interception too. He was just really bad that game.
It's there's I don't even know what it is anymore. There's a Indian burial ground underneath the stadium or something, because how do you go from Big 12 special teams player of the year to 3rd, 4th team kick returner?
He wasn't even the first 2 years this is his 2nd year, I think. He wasn't even in consideration for the kick return role when he was at Rutgers either. So it's something was not clicking with him in Rutgers this time here.
The play calling awful. I shouldn't say awful. It just wasn't.
It was
great.
awful.
It was
awful.
Okay, I'll say awful.
Trying to
be nice a little bit.
Some of the play calls were just totally head scratching. The 4th and 1, you do a wide receiver sweep with Chris Long. Was that the first sweep that he's had all season? You're just going to bust it out on a 4th and 1. He was 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he got the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean that's questionable. Who's your receivers next year? Sean Ryan obviously.
Oh my God,
had a couple glimpses. I don't think he only had 2 or 3 catches, but I mean he's clearly your best receiver, and he's gone. Jamean Jones, possession guy, gone.
Cruikshank gone.
I think he has a year technically.
I think he's done.
I think he ends up leaving too, but I mean he does have a year. So what is it? It's going to be Chris Long. We saw a lot of who did we see? We saw Max Patterson get significant snaps, but not one single target. He's supposed to be the speedster wide receiver out of Virginia, and he just hasn't been getting anything. And he's a great route runner, but no separation again. Quarterback has no time to throw, and when he does throw, he overthrows it. It's like the accuracy is a clear issue. I don't know, and it's clear the staff isn't confident in Wimsatt either. That's why they're putting Evan Simon in a late game.
Yep.
Because they want to see it's like maybe Evan Simon can turn this around real quick, just get us a score. And it's like no, he can't do it either. It's just this was the most. I can't even think of a word. It was just absolute shit. That's it. This team's offense was garbage. I'm sorry.
This is the first game all season that I could not finish. After the first drive of the second half, I just turned it off. It was that upsetting to sit there and watch this just total lack of effort by the offense. If we're just looking at stats, the quarterbacks went 8 for 22 for 72 yards. They didn't turn the ball over, which I guess is a good thing. Either of the quarterbacks anyway. We went 1 for 13 on third down on the day, and the conversion, the lone conversion we did have on third down was late in the game. We had 6 3-and-outs this game. We had 7 first downs all game, only 2 in the first half. So the defense forced 2 turnovers in the first half. We had 2 first downs in the first half on offense. If you just we didn't cross the 50 until late in the second half. We crossed the 50 one time on offense all day. Just what are we trying to do on offense? We've gotten this sample now of Nuns as the OC, and we're averaging 9.7 points, offensive points a game under Nuns. What has he shown that would give us any sort of faith that he is the guy on as the offensive coordinator? Because this is one of the most important decisions Schiano is going to make in his 2.0 reign. If he gives him the offensive coordinator role after what he's shown in the 6-game sample, he's going to face a massive fan uprising. This is going to be similar to the uprising that the athletic department saw when we cut off contact with Schiano during the negotiation. It's going to be that bad, and I don't know if he's aware of that.
Yeah, no, I mean I totally agree. The entire unit as a whole was just bad. And I think it starts up front too. Your best offensive lineman, technically, based on if you want to go PFF grades and all that, it was Brian Felter, the kid who got relegated to second string, third string guard when Schiano came in. He was a starter for years, and now he played actually pretty solid, but the transfers just haven't worked out. Willie Tyler's benched. This was supposed to be your starting left tackle all season long. He's been benched completely. Kobe Asamoah, go on.
And we ran Raekwon O'Neal out of off campus too. He wanted to stay. He was our starting left tackle for 2.5 years. He was our best graded guy in 2021, and for some reason the staff was just done with him. I don't know if it's because they thought he was soft or what, but he went and started on a ranked UCLA team all year, and they had their best season in a decade with him starting at left tackle. Multiple
grades in the 70s, multiple grades in the 80s, multiple grades in pass blocking in the 80s. Raekwon O'Neal was a good player.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's gone, and it was just it's crazy to me. I know you want to get your guys in there and all that, but that was nutty. Dunlap, he is what he is. Not good. I guess he's serviceable, maybe. Ireland Brown actually didn't look awful. I'm actually a big fan of him at center, to be honest. But you're only as good as your unit as an offensive lineman. And when you have Kobe Asamoah, a true freshman in there, who's a little bit undersized for guard still, in my opinion, doing 180s, then you're gonna the whole line's gonna struggle. He had a really bad game at guard, man. I know there's a lot of hype around him, but he's your center. Don't try to put him elsewhere. It's not going to work. And I don't know if there's any improvements in the young guys yet. These young guys are going to take years to develop. That's how offensive linemen work. So I don't know if you have an answer at guard next year, because you're losing DiRenzo, who was your guard / tackle. You're losing, Dunlap is what he is, like I said. And then you don't have a left tackle currently. It's Holland Pierce at right tackle, but left tackle, you're gonna have to hit the portal once again for 4 linemen. It's crazy.
I want to read off some stats to you because I think give a clear picture for the people listening of how bad this offense was under Nuns. And it's been bad all season, but we were expecting some kind of improvement with a fresh voice. So he gets hired as the OC, or he gets placed with the interim OC tag the day after the Nebraska game. So he had that full extra bye week to prepare for Indiana, and he had game week to prepare for Indiana. So he's basically had 7 weeks as the OC. So we've gone 1-5 in that time. We've scored 56 offensive points. That's 7 touchdowns. So, 1.2 touchdowns a game, less than 10 points a game. Passing numbers, 78 for 166. That's 47% completion percentage for 807 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 2 fumbles lost by quarterbacks. Rushing, 193 carries for 558 yards, 558 yards. That's 2.9 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. On third down, we've gone 23 for 88. That's 26.1%. If that was stretched out over a whole season, that'd be bottom 5 in the FBS in terms of third down conversion rate. Now, if we look back to even further, which might not be fair to both stints, when Nuns was here as the OC, we've averaged 8.2 points per game on offense with Nuns leading the offense. And that's over a 13-game sample size against Big Ten opponents. And
that's with a 44-point game versus Liberty.
So that game I didn't include. If we do include that, it's like about 10 points a game. I'm only accounting Big Ten opponents, which maybe not be fair.
No, that's. I mean, hey, you're going to have to face 8 of them per year or more than that, whatever the number is.
And in his time as the OC, we've gotten shut out 4 times. We haven't scored a single point.
Yeah,
we were shut out twice this year against middle of the pack Big Ten teams. Minnesota and Maryland. What has he shown that in any way indicates that he is qualified to be the offensive coordinator? There's tons of offensive coordinators out there at all different levels doing innovative things, putting up a ton of points. I know a lot of people have brought up Joe Conlon, who's the head coach at Fordham. He makes $300,000 a year. He had one of the most high octane offenses in college football history this year, averaging over 600 yards per game. He went toe-to-toe with the MAC. They're playing in the MAC title game in Ohio. I think they lost 59-52 at Ohio in that game. They had Tim DeMorat, who threw like 55 touchdowns this year for Fordham. Unfortunately, he's out of eligibility. They've got multiple 1,000-yard. I think they got 3,000-yard receivers this year. Like, hire a guy like that. Because at least if you fail, you tried because he showed he could do it at some level. Nuns hasn't shown that at any point in college. Like, who has he developed as a player? Who has he landed as a recruit? Like, seriously, name the best guy that he's landed as a recruit. That guy you could say he's developed as a player. I don't see it. And Schiano tying his future to Nuns at offensive coordinator is basically, and we said it off the podcast, like, he's turning on the burner on his seat because you're basically saying, I think what we're seeing this year from Nuns isn't what he is. It's like, okay, you don't think that? We've got 14 games of evidence as him as a college OC. Sure, we'll see. Next year is going to be just as disastrous, but you'll lose all these season ticket holders. You'll lose all these fans. Like, nobody's going to give a shit about what this team does if Nuns comes back as OC. We need something that brings juice to the program, something that people are actually excited about. Because right now, there's not a whole lot. People aren't excited about defense. They want to see offense, and we haven't shown offense at all under Schiano 2.0. So that's my rant.
I'm looking at it right now. Recruiting-wise, you bring up a good point. I love Nuns. I think he's a really good guy. In terms of OC, I don't think it's the answer whatsoever, but he's recruited 10 guys as a primary recruiter to Rutgers. And that's like Jordan Thompson, Desmond Igwinosin, who I guess you can kind of count, even though Union guys really all go to Rutgers minus Davison.
Yeah, and we all know why he didn't come here because his bank account's got a few extra commas in it right now.
No way.
Yeah.
But Elijah Mack bust. Amir Robinson left. Out of the 10 people he's recruited, 5 of them are gone already. Amir Robinson, Sean Munnerlin, Kayron Adams, Isaiah Wright, Chris Conti. I could see Evan Simon, who he helped recruit, being gone. I could see Brian Felter leaving because he's not getting any playing time. So it would be down to 3 guys. So, I mean, it hasn't worked out at all. But he definitely can't be the OC, in my opinion. I know he's not working with a whole lot just because his offense the cupboard's bare. There's no playmakers whatsoever. Maybe some of the young guys can step up eventually, but it's currently there's just no playmakers at all. I just, like you mentioned, Conlon makes a ton of sense to me, and it just because the whole path that Conlon has worked in the past. Like look at Joe Moorhead. Joe Moorhead went from Fordham head coach to OC of Penn State to head coach of Oregon, I believe it was, and now I think he's now at Akron. Maybe he's not a good head coach in terms of like.
I don't think he was the OC at Oregon, and that led to Akron.
Was he? Oh, that's what it was. Okay, that's what I meant. But no, he was great. Like he was a great offensive coordinator. Mississippi State, that's what he was for head coach. Yes. But he was a good offensive coordinator for them. He put up numbers. Then all of a sudden he gets picked up by Penn State. He still puts up numbers. Like he's a good OC. So I think like this would be probably the best option at the moment. Maybe there's other guys out there. Like I still like a Joe Daly type just because he's a Jersey guy. I think he's a Freehold native. And he just seems like a really good option based on his resume and everything. He's got NFL experience now too. Maybe you got to watch out because Matt Rule might take him back over at Nebraska. But there's a couple good names out there. Like now there's also some names that I think people are just throwing out there for shits and giggles. Like there's like Corey Dennis, everyone keeps mentioning from Ohio State, the QB's coach. I don't think he's leaving. He's been at Ohio State since 2015. You're going to tell me he never got a job offer from 2015 until now? Yep. Like, no, he was QC, he was intern. He's just going to keep moving up the ladder in Ohio State, and that's fine. That's good for him. What was the other name? Like, other outrageous name? Someone said Kyle Flood today. And I was like, dude, what? Stop.
He's never coming back here.
Yeah.
Like, he could apply for a janitor's job, and he's not getting it at Rutgers. Like, there's just...
I know you mentioned it, and we mentioned it off the pod. Schiano has to figure out what kind of offense he wants to run. If it's pro style again, I'm not going to be happy about that. But like whatever, if that's what you want to do, you want to run the ball up the gut nonstop. Like, sure, that's your choice. But then you got to pick a guy that can do that, and you got to recruit guys that can do that. I personally think college football is all about speed. And I know Gleason preached this when he first came in. But you got to get more talented playmakers. All about movement, pre-snap. Look at what Dable did with the Giants. And I know it's a weird comparison because it's the NFL. He's scheming around what he has currently. Is Daniel Jones the answer? No, maybe, probably not. Well, that's up for debate, I guess. But he's making Daniel Jones look great, competent. Like that's what you have to do. You have to scheme around what you currently have, and that was Gleason's issue. That was Merringer's issue. That was McNulty's issue. That was. I don't even know who else was OC in that timeline. But then you get a guy like the Fridge, and the Fridge is like, all right, I can make Gary Nova kind of work. Like, I'm just going to play it smart with him. And then all of a sudden, Gary Nova has like one of the best seasons in recent Rutgers football history, maybe all time, actually. So I don't know.
It's this constant jamming a square peg into a round hole that is so infuriating and just like beating your head against the wall. Like when you are at a talent disadvantage, the only thing you can win with is a superior game plan and scheme. Rutgers cannot run this power offense with a talent deficiency at quarterback, a talent deficiency at offensive line, a talent deficiency at receiver, at tight end. Like Sam Brown is damn good, but he's not going to make up for when the offensive line allows for pressure on every single running play like they had this year. He did a good job breaking free and breaking a lot of tackles, but he also got hurt because he was taking so much punishment. And a running back is always going to take punishment. I get that. But the only way to have an effective offense when you have a talent deficiency is having a scheme that is creating misdirection. It's creating, these kind of pick plays that gets guys open. Rutgers showed no kind of curiosity or no sort of, ingenuity in that sense this year. They were just trying to run the same plays. They're so predictable out of the same sets with the same personnel. Like even on Saturday, they were running a fucking RPO with Johnny Langan as the running back. Like, what could you possibly expect to get out of that play? Like he's slow and, Gavin's faking a handoff to him and he's taken to the outside and he's getting run down by linebackers. Maybe his ankle's not 100%, but he's handing it off to him. And it's like, what are we trying to accomplish here? Like, we're not fooling anybody. Like, we need an offensive coordinator, honestly, who can honestly look at the roster and say, you can do X, you can do Y. I'm only going to use you that way. And that's how we got to do things. We got to bring in a talent infusion in the transfer portal because we don't have, like you mentioned, we're losing our top 3 receivers this year. if we're like looking at who we have left at that point, it's like true freshmen that are coming in. It's Chris Long. It's Christian Dremel, former walk-on. Like, we have nothing at receiver next year. We need to bring in at least 2 guys, more like 3. Bring in an offense coordinator who is full of fresh ideas and totally changes how we do things, because it'll be invigorating for the players too, because they know these plays aren't going to work. They're lining up there, and they know that the guy in front of them is not going to block for this play. They know that the guy he's handing it off to can't break a tackle. They know that the guy he's trying to throw it to can't get open. So they're just as defeated as the coaches. Like, they need a philosophical change, number one. Like, every good coach at some point hits a crossroad and realizes what I'm doing isn't working. Like, Nick Saban talks about it, how, he always thought defense wins championships. He's a defensive guy. He was talking about, there's a clip I put up about him talking about how they're leading the SEC this 2 years ago in defensive points allowed with 19 points a game. And what his team considers good is 13 points a game. And he realizes that everything in terms of rules, in terms of, what people are focusing on now is geared towards offense. So he realized, I need to do the same thing as a head coach. Everything needs to be geared around the offense. We'll stop them occasionally, but for the most part, we need to outscore teams more so than stop teams. And Giano, I don't know why he hasn't realized this. Maybe he has, and he hasn't either done enough to recruit guys or done enough to adapt his game plans, but it is about outscoring teams in college football, not stopping teams. And the sooner he realizes that and kind of adapts his game plans accordingly and adapts his personnel and his coaching hires accordingly, the sooner we'll actually be a better team. But until we start trying to outscore teams and not just trying to do complementary football, which essentially is like, I'm going to play really good defense and run the ball out, we're going to win games ugly. That's not going to happen in the Big Ten.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And going back to like what you said about Sam Brown, like I wanted to bring this up. Look at Pacheco. Pacheco was misused for years at Rutgers. Now he's a starting running back in the NFL year 1. Ran for 100 yards last week against I shouldn't say this year they're pretty good, but on paper, the Chargers defense is pretty good. Ran for 70 yards and a touchdown yesterday. He's averaging 4.7 in the NFL. You know what he averaged at Rutgers? Lower than that. Like, it's like Sam Brown's great. I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be a really good one. If he won't have support up front to protect or block for him, there's no point in him staying. I hate to say it. And he knows that. It's not like I'm giving him some type of new info or anything like that. I know people are going to be like pissed I said that, but like, it's nothing like groundbreaking. Like, he knows there's no like offensive lineman up front. This team needs 3 playmakers at wide receiver. They need a tight end, at least one that can block. And then you need 3 portal guys at this point. And for the offensive line, like, hell, you probably need a quarterback too. And
you do need a quarterback. You absolutely need a quarterback.
Even if it's a 1-year stopgap, I'm sure Wimsatt, like everyone's like, yeah, Wimsatt's going to leave. Like, no, like maybe he's got to understand, like, in order to win games, maybe he develops nicely over the offseason. I still think he needs another year to sit on the bench and kind of understand like how things work and fix the accuracy issue. Understand that you got to fix that. You got to fix your decision making. That's the number one thing with every quarterback. It's not, you can have the arm, you can have the all the attributes that everybody loves in recruiting rankings, but if you don't have it up here, you're nothing. You're not a quarterback then. You're DC Jefferson at tight end.
Yeah, and I think Gavin did show like small improvements with decision making as the year went on, but his accuracy was still the problem. Like he cannot hit this broadside of a barn sometimes, man. And it's not like deep shots. We're talking about screens. We're talking about like, 10-yard in routes. We're talking about like the basic throws of a quarterback's repertoire, let alone like the moon balls that are like, tier 3 and 4 level throws for a quarterback. We're talking about tier 1 level throws. Like these are the things that you need to build your foundation around. He still is not hitting regularly. So he needs to just like figure out what those accuracy issues are caused by. It's because it's a lot of things. It's his footwork is terrible. Like half his throws are either on the run, either by design or not, or off his back foot. Like he needs to be able to step into throws and have this repetitive motion that he actually sticks to. And maybe that's just working with a quarterback coach in the offseason. He did that this past offseason, and it didn't really do a whole lot. So he needs to really just get his shit together this offseason. And I know he's young. He's 19 years old. There's not many Power 5 programs who start 19-year-old quarterbacks for a reason. A lot of them, they take 3 years to develop. There's not many Trevor Lawrences in the world. There's not many Bryce Youngs. And the reason they're ranked so high in recruiting rankings is because evaluators say, oh my God, he's got awareness beyond his years, let alone the physical talents. Because if you're a Power 5 quarterback, you have the physical talents for the most part. It's about that feel for the game. It's about that decision making. It's about, these things that can't really be taught, these intangibles, and he doesn't really have that yet. So it's going to take time.
I keep looking back to all the recruiting things that came out about Wimsatt when he was in at the Elite 11, and it was all accuracy issues. Everyone fell in love with his game as a dual threat, which apparently just disappeared because he doesn't run anymore. Maybe that's injury related. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's scheme related, which would be even more concerning. But he struggles so bad with accuracy, and it's been like this for a couple years now since he was in high school. It's well known, and it's not something you can easily fix. It's going to take time, and that's why I think you need a stopgap quarterback, whether that be I think the only quarterback we really mentioned so far was Jack Tuttle in the portal, but I don't think he's an option either. But they need somebody. They need to start showing some more interest in another quarter. I know who they reach out to today.
Jeff Sims, the Georgia Tech quarterback. I haven't written that up yet, but it looks like we're starting to show interest in him. We had the one-off with Chad Masco. I don't know if that's even – he's not even in the portal, so I don't know why they started following him.
Yeah. Well, I know Jeff Sims. I know I mentioned to you. There's a rumor he's going to UCF, and he apparently skipped class for 2 months, so it's that's probably a no-go.
Yep.
You kind of got to hope, if you do hire an OC that's not – on the staff currently, instead of Nuns, you got to hope that guy has a quarterback with them. And I know I like Conlin the most as a OC candidate, but his quarterback just graduated. I don't know. And if you're going a lower level guy, like the Villanova guy, Chris Board or no?
Chris Bowden. You're talking about the OC, right?
Yeah. If you go with him as a OC, I don't think Villanova quarterback's probably the answer either. So you got to hit the portal for somebody. I don't know who, and I don't know how you're going to convince them too, because you need linemen. That's why you got to get probably 2 or 3 linemen and be like, hey, look, we got these guys. We got Holland Pierce there. Look at his tape. He's pretty good. And then we got Ireland Brown up front. So we got 2 starters. And then we just got these 3 guys. Man, we're going to protect you great and hype them up or something like that. But it's I just don't know how you do it with the current roster setup. It's tough.
Yeah, thankfully there are some local programs who have really good quarterbacks with New Jersey connections. So Monmouth's quarterback is really good. His name's Tony Muskett. This year he's got 1,900 yards passing. He's got 17 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. He's got 200 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Matt Saluka is the quarterback for Holy Cross, who's whatever the FCS Heisman is, he's probably one of the front runners for that. He's led Holy Cross to an undefeated season this year. He's spent a year. He's from Long Island. He spent a year at the Petty school, I think, either Petty or Hun. He literally went 3 straight seasons in high school undefeated. He's led Holy Cross to its best 2-year stretch, arguably in program history. This season he's got 2,300 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. 918 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns on the ground. This kid is a true dual threat. He would be a great addition. He's one of the top-rated quarterbacks according to PFF. He's got 2 additional years of eligibility after this year. So maybe hiring and they also have a really good receiver in Jalen Coker too. He's one of the top 10 graded receivers on PFF. So this is the kind of situation where you hire the head coach, you hire the offensive coordinator, you kind of plug and play his quarterback and his wide receiver, and you just kind of hit the ground running, because I don't see a logical situation other than hiring a coach and bringing players along where we can get a functional offense next year.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. But I do think it's going to be, if they do go not on the staff and they go out of out of the area or whatever, it's got to be someone from a lower level. It's going to be tough to hire one of these big name guys. I really do think it's going to be tough. It's not easy to work for an old school head coach like Schiano. The offense, like I said, it's a major rebuild. A lot of guys aren't going to want to hitch their careers to this. I know someone mentioned Brendan Marion on our board, the Texas pass game coordinator. It's hard to convince a guy I know he's from PA. I know he's got the connections. It's going to be hard to convince a guy like that to leave Texas to come to Rutgers, where if he has 1 bad season, 2 bad seasons, it's all right, you got your shot as OC. You're screwed. You're never getting another shot again. That's it. Or you have to wait a lot or build your resume back up.
Yep.
Like it's tough for a young guy to do that, like, and just risk yourself like that, especially when this offense hasn't been good. Like I said before, since the fridge. Like, when's the last time it was good? Like, I don't know.
I can't remember the last time it's probably the last Gary Nova years, honestly.
Yeah. It's a rough look. So, I mean, I think you're going to have to go to like the Holy Crosses, the Villanovas, the Fordhams, and hopefully you get a big name guy like a Conlon, like a Bob Chesney, like Chris Bowden. I mean, they're putting up numbers. Like, it's not like it's still offensive schemes. Like, they're still scheming against people. I know it's a different level, but like it could. I think you'll do better than 10 points per game.
You absolutely will. And I just looked up Matt Sluga, who's recently followed him. Miami of Ohio coaches, Virginia Tech coaches, Utah coaches, Marshall coaches. Like, he hasn't entered the portal, but all these teams are starting to follow him because he's that good.
Cheat. Like, you have to cheat. It's clear as day. Everyone else is cheating. You're cheating too. Like, there's no difference. Like, you just have to cheat. There's no repercussions anymore. Like, no one gives a shit. The biggest fine you're going to get right now in college football is for your fans storming the field after a win. You're not going to get fined for tampering.
Yep. And a lot of times the boosters will just cover that fine. Like, I think that's what happened with Tennessee. Like, they started that GoFundMe for like paying for the goalposts, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So,
oh God, I'm tired of yelling. Can we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to. There's not really a whole lot to talk about with the portal. It doesn't officially open up until next week, so I think the 5th. There's been a decent amount of new follows, so if you want to see the full list, you can check that list out on the boards. A lot of interesting stuff going on, but nothing that's like super juicy that Rutgers has kind of fully shown interest in. Let's talk basketball. Basketball had a really nice game on Saturday against Central Connecticut State. Obviously, they're not a very good team, but when you play not a very good team in terms of rankings, you want to beat the shit out of them and just blow them out. And that's what Rutgers did on Saturday. And I really like that in situations where teams start to fight back, Pike adjusts and just like steps on teams' throats. Like, that's what happened on Saturday. I think Central Connecticut State, coming out of the halftime break, they cut the lead down to like 10. Like, they were starting to look really good. Pike called his timeout, readjusted. Obviously, Caleb made his season debut. He looked pretty good as well. I really like how many role players are starting to kind of find themselves. You saw Jalen Miller have a bunch of career highs on Saturday. Obviously, a guy like Antoine Woolfolk is really establishing himself as like a really quality rotational big. Dean Reber's starting to get back healthy. Obviously, Paul didn't play. What are you seeing out of this basketball team right now? And obviously, we have a big game against Miami on Wednesday. But what are you seeing out of this team that you're really liking?
Ton of depth, like 1 through 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe even guys that can play significant minutes. I didn't think going into the season a guy like Woolfolk would be playing as the number one big man off the bench, but here we are. He is the number one big man off the bench now. He's been phenomenal. He went 4-4 on Saturday. Mag's a great role piece. He actually bounced back after a struggle. Who was it? I don't even know who they played the game before this. What Sacred Heart? No, whoever it was. He struggled the game before that, but he bounced back. Andre Hyatt obviously had a pretty bad game, but he's been pretty good this season overall. Derek Simpson stepped up in a role where he wasn't expected to be the starter at the beginning of the season. Now he started 3 games in a row. Yep. And he's playing well. Like, there's just so much depth here. Dean Reber was hyped up as a guy that was going to be a significant role player, and he's not even he's still in the rotation a little bit, but he's like a guy that could play significant minutes. Jalen Miller, like you mentioned, career highs for him. He's starting to feel a little bit more better on his offensive game, so that's always good. That was the worst sentence I've ever put together. Starting to get more in the groove on the offensive side of the ball. That's better. So yeah, I mean that's always a good sign. So that means they'll give you another guard option off the bench. Caleb McConnell's back. That's huge. There's this rotation could go 7, 8, 9 deep. Like, and Troll's another guy who we thought were going to play a couple of minutes this year too. And then they're getting Mulcahy back too. So this offense should be clicking on all cylinders. They have a good shooter, obviously, and Cam Spencer, which has been huge for the team this year. Cliff's putting up crazy good numbers. Maybe not this game, but overall, I think he's averaging 18 and 10, 18 and 11, something like that.
Yeah, Cam, not only has he been the highest scorer on the team, but he's been like one of the most efficient offensive players in the country. I think he's top 20 in terms of offensive efficiency. He's leading the country in steals. Like this
Mhm.
is like he was excellent at Loyola. He is so much better than I thought he'd be this year. I thought he would basically be like a watered down version of what he was last year.
Mhm.
He's like facing like tougher competition. I mean,
Yeah.
and playing in a deeper rotation. He's been probably him and Cliff have been 1A, 1B in terms of our best players this year. And that is really promising, especially considering Paul has been hurt and Caleb's been hurt, and you're getting those two guys back for those really tough games. That's been so nice for this team to have a legit number two player in Cam Spencer.
Yeah, it's been huge, and you get a 3-point shooter that you haven't had in I don't know how long. He's hitting that like pretty good rate at 47%. Like it's
Probably since Doobie, we haven't had as good a shooter as him.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, mine do had a bad game versus Temple, and that happens with every shooters. But you get out of that slump, and he goes 4 of 7 from 3, 4 of 6 from 3. He's 19, 18 points. Like he might lead the team in scoring when all said and done.
I think you will.
I think someone predicted that on the night report. I don't know who it was, but I feel like I'm spot on with hoops this year. I predicted that Reber wasn't going to be the starter and a Mag would be the starter for. Predicted Spencer. I'm tooting my own horn here now. This is still a tournament team too. I'm marking that one down.
I agree.
Beat Miami on Wednesday, and no one cares about that Temple loss anymore.
Yeah, and Rutgers now sits at 36th in Ken Palm rankings. Miami is 44th. Miami lost to, I believe it was Maryland by,
Yeah.
I think, 8 or 13 at home or something like that.
18.
18 at home. So if you missed last week, the last pod, basically what Maryland said is that Miami's an undersized team, not a great rebounding team, that Maryland just kind of bullied. And I think Rutgers could use that same script and do the same, because Rutgers is a better defensive team than Maryland is. And they're bigger than Maryland. So I do like this matchup for Rutgers. Obviously, it's the first true road game of the year. So it's going to be a tough game, but this is a game Rutgers should win. I think they'll be favored, or they'd be favored on a neutral court. They might be a slight underdog because it's away. This is a game that Rutgers should win. And this is starting the stretch of this really tough 5-game skid here for Rutgers. They play at Miami on Wednesday. Then they play home against Indiana to open the Big Ten season on Saturday at 4 p.m. Then they play the following Thursday at Ohio State. And then we play Seton Hall on Sunday the 11th at home. And then they play Wake Forest on December 17th at home. So this is a really difficult stretch. What would you say is successful in terms of a record in this 5-game stretch for Rutgers?
That's where it's tricky. I don't really know how college basketball is weird this year. A lot of teams are losing. A lot of big names are losing. Like you saw Seton Hall lose to Siena yesterday. That's a mind-blowing one. UNC, who Indiana plays, so you can kind of get a little gauge of that one on Wednesday night after Miami play Rutgers. If you switch over to ESPN, it's going to be Indiana, North Carolina. So you can kind of get a gauge of how good Indiana is. Ohio State's always good, especially in a away game, which Rutgers always struggles for some reason on the road. I think we're going from Miami to Wake Forest, you said? That 5-game stretch?
Yep.
I'd probably say 3 wins is like ideal. You need at least 3 wins. I think Miami's very beatable. I think Indiana's going to be a little tough, but I still, a home game at the Rack, 4 p.m. What is it, Friday? Thursday?
Saturday at 4 p.m.
Saturday. Jesus, I can't even get my dates right. Saturday night at the Rack, I think that place is going to be rowdy. It's going to be insane. It's your first big atmosphere of the year. That's no knock on other ones. It's just a big opponent. I think 3 wins. I think 3 wins is realistic. I think you get Miami. I think Indiana might be tough, but I'll probably give it a loss just out of props to Indiana for being the top team in the Big Ten right now. I think you beat Seton Hall at home. That's going to be another big atmosphere. And then I think you beat Wake Forest. I really do. I think Ohio State away is going to be tough, and I think Indiana is going to be tough. So I think they could get more than 3 wins, but I think 3 wins is like the minimum right now.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I don't think Wake Forest, Seton Hall, and Miami are that good. They're all ranked below Rutgers and Ken Palm. So I think you have to win at least 3 of these games. Like you can't start the Big Ten schedule off 0-2. So I think you got to win one of those 2. And then a road game, like these road games are tough regardless. I just think somehow you got to get 3 wins out of this group. Starting with this Wednesday. A couple things regarding basketball. So if you remember the Knights of the Raritan, they have an event at George Street Tavern on Wednesday. They have a watch party going on.
Yeah.
So if you've signed up for that, I'm going to be there. I don't know if Richie's going to be there or not, but that should be a good time. Another thing that just got announced was the Rutgers Seton Hall Hoops banquet that the front office puts on every year, or at least they did
2 years running.
I think they did 2 years running. Yeah. So that'll also be at Mama Nutley or Mama, what's it called? Mama Victoria in Nutley, New Jersey again. It's going to be hosted, the emceed by John Fanta, the front office guys. There's going to be a ton of Rutgers and Seton Hall alums there in terms of basketball players. So that should be another good time. I think tickets just started going on sale today for that. But yeah, it's a tough stretch for Rutgers, and I think you're going to really know what this team's made of the next 2 weeks, or the next 3 weeks actually.
Yeah.
Do we know in terms of Paul's timeline when he's expected to return?
I know it was game to game. I could see him back for this one versus Miami. It's been quite some time. I actually thought he was going to play this past game, because he ironically was like in a warm up. And I was like, oh shit, like he might be playing. Like, holy shit, like look at that. You get McConnell back, and then they're like, no, McConnell's playing, he's not. I was like, oh, okay, sure,
yeah,
that made sense. But no, I think he was close to playing this past game, and I think this is the he's definitely going to play this next game. And I shouldn't say definitely. I think he's going to play this next game though. I think there's a very good shot of it, and I think you're going to need him too. You got to get this offense moving a little bit better. I know it's obviously Central Connecticut State who they blown out, but. Whatever. The game before that, it wasn't bad versus Ryder, and then the game before that was that's when you saw the struggles on offense. I really think they could go on a nice little run here with games. If they could sneak that Indiana one, they could win 4. Am I going too like optimistic now? Thinking because after watching Seton Hall last night, they stink. They can't shoot free throws. They can't shoot threes. They went 1 of 9 from 3. They had 60% from the line. And they got out rebounded by Siena. Or I'm sorry, it was a tie. 36-36. But like Siena. 4-3 Siena.
Yeah, and I do like the killer instinct of this team this year. Like Pike really has these guys like dialed in. Like when they do face adversity, they don't crumble like they did early last year, and they just let teams back into games. Like they just stomp on teams' throats. I think the Temple game's a bit of an aberration given who we were losing, and we just had a terrible offensive game. Like I think that one you just kind of have to flush and learn from. I do think this team at full strength though is the top 4 team in the Big Ten this year, and I think that'll play out over the full season. But this is a very, very good team. I think this is Pike said last year's team was his best team. I think this year's team is his best team because everybody has a defined role and plays more cohesively as a unit than they did last year. Last year was too much ISO ball. It was a lot of, Gio takes this one, Ron takes the next one, and everybody else just, if you're wide open, take the shot or, crash the boards. I think this team just is a more free-flowing offense and more defined roles amongst everybody on the team. A lot of young guys are getting good minutes right now because they have to. A guy like Derek Simpson, I feel like he's shown so much growth in 6 games from where he was game 1 to where he is now. So I'm really high on this team.
Yeah, and I'm tired of people saying the Big Ten's bad this year. Like, it's clearly not. Like, Purdue just, beat Duke pretty handily, like a 20-point win. I think Indiana actually beats North Carolina on Wednesday. Iowa's beat Clemson the other day, but I think they lost to TCU after that. Who else? There was another big win. Someone else. Jesus, that Northwestern game was ugly. 43-42 versus Auburn.
Yeah.
Texas Tech lost to Ohio State. Like, the Big Ten is good. Hell, and I know I might be mentioning this because I cover them as well, but Penn State looks like a good team this year.
Yep.
Like, the whole Big Ten from top to bottom is good. Like, stop with the whole narrative. It's a down year. It's not. Like, it's not a down year. It's a really good year, if anything, to start off.
I think the narrative for that just mainly comes around the Big Ten lost a lot of star power in the draft. Like if you look at Jaden Ivey and Murray and Johnny Davis, like they lost like 3 top 6 picks in the NBA draft, and that doesn't mean there's not more talent. It just means they lost the top 3 NBA prospects in the league. That doesn't really mean more than that.
Well, I mean, I didn't see Zach Edey developing into what he is right now. Like, I thought he was goofy on the court, looked slow, couldn't really move, and now he's 21, 12, and 3 blocks, or 2.3 blocks a game. Like, I didn't see that one coming at all.
Yeah, him and Cliff's matchup this year will be very interesting because they're so different stylistically, but they're both really good at what they do. I'm really excited for basketball season, and I'm glad that football season's not going to be mucking it up anymore. But it is an exciting time of the year for football. This is typically the time where coaching hires get made, the transfer portal heats up, the high school class gets closed out. So there's going to be a lot of news that comes over the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned to your Twitter feed, stay tuned to your podcast feed, stay tuned to the boards, because as news breaks and as news is developing, we'll be covering it. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on before we sign off here, Rich?
I mean, like I said before, there's a big Black Friday / Cyber Monday / the entire holiday weekend deal going on right now. It's only good for today. Today's the last day for it. It's $22 for the entire year. That's $100 and something value. I don't know. I think you save like $80 if you do it this way, or if you do the math, it's $1.83 a month. Sign up now. We surpassed like 20 something subscribers, new ones. So a bunch of new people on the board. So obviously, if you're on the board, you're probably watching this podcast because it's the greatest podcast alive in Rutgers athletics history. But so I mean, definitely stay tuned to that. I'm trying to think what else. Nadir Chichiri, the Virginia offensive lineman / tight end, just texted me, said Rutgers official visit being set up. I think it's the second week in December he's aiming for. Might be the first week. I forget. Actually, I have to check that in a second. Probably have an article on that really soon. Quarterback recruiting. We know they're probably going to hit the portal they should hit the portal for a quarterback, shouldn't they? Probably. But they did offer another 2023 QB. I'm not going to put his name out there yet, although if you're on the night report, you probably already know, or you have a pretty good guess. He is committed elsewhere, so he doesn't want to ruin that. We'll see what happens in that aspect, if he ends up flipping or not. But I'm told the school he's committed to is trying to keep him. They're pushing very hard to keep him. Let's see. What else? There was another offer too. Who was it? Vincent Carroll, the defensive tackle, has only played a year of football. He's looking into a Rutgers official visit too. Nothing's set there yet. I know a couple other schools, like Wisconsin, was showing interest under Leonard. Now with the whole Luke Fickell situation, it's a little different. I'm sure Luke Fickell is going to have a ton of dudes from Cincy flip over there. We already saw a bunch of decommits. I know Rutgers has already reached out to one. I don't know if anything happens with that traction-wise yet. OC, I think you got to hire one soon, and hashtag hire Conlon. That's it.
It's just new blood. I'll take any new blood. I'm serious when I say this. If we hire Nuns as the OC, we're entering like a very dark period in Rutgers football history in terms of fan enthusiasm. Like, there's going to be nothing. Like, people are going to be so deflated that what we saw, this poo-poo platter the last 6 games, is what's going to be fed to us again. Just microwaved and left out in the sun for a year. Please don't do this to us, Greg. Please just hire somebody new, change your philosophy, and give us reason to hope for next year's football season.
I'm gonna clip that.
Do it. I hope you do, because we need change. Like, there has to be a light bulb that clicked in that final game where Shiano realizes we can't do this going into next year. Like, I think he was really hoping that against Maryland, who is a below average defense, that there was just some life on offense, that something they could build on, something to inspire hope going into 2023. But there was nothing. We scored 0 points against a below average defense in a game where we had a lot of opportunities to make something happen on offense, so we did nothing. So with that, I will sign off today on a somber note. I want that to just float in the air for Rutgers fans, and hopefully the next time we're jumping for joy because an offensive coordinator has been hired that is outside the program, who's going to breathe new life into this offense, bring in his guys, and just really give Rutgers fans a reason to kind of be inspired. So for Richie and I, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Signing off.